Hello, it's the Security Weekly News, and it is episode 349. I'm Doug White, and it's Friday the 15th of December, 2023. We've got Tesla, TikTok, Karakurt, VISS, Volt, Typhoon, Cozy Bear, GambleForce, Aaran, Leyland, and more news on the Security Weekly News.
This is a Security Weekly production for security professionals by security professionals. Please visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to all the shows on our network.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
It's the show that keeps you up to date on the latest security news twice a week. Your trusted source for accurate security information and expert analysis. It's time for the Security Weekly News. AI, accelerated cloud adoption, and hybrid work are fundamentally shifting how business gets done. The old way of securing your people, apps, and data doesn't work and scale anymore. To stay ahead, today's organizations need to reimagine their security and networking infrastructure with a cloud-first, unified SASE architecture. Join Palo Alto Networks and leading technologists from across the globe for SASE Converge 2023, a two-day virtual experience, November 15th and 16th. Revealing how SASE powered by advanced AI can drive better security and networking outcomes. Register today at securityweekly.com/Palo Alto.
Application Security Weekly delivers interviews and news from the worlds of AppSec, DevOps, and all the other ways people find and fix software flaws. Join us as we explore how the latest news highlights modern security practices or reminds us of the missing ones. We also bring insights from interviews on topics from training to threat modeling, from open source tools to cloud-native techniques, plus an occasional reference from new wave to synthwave. Find us at securityweekly.com/subscribe or look for Application Security Weekly wherever you pick your podcasts.
All right, it's the Security Weekly News. I'm Doug White. Well, Zoom. Yes, that Zoom. The online meeting system we all know and love released something new. It's called the VISS, or the Vulnerability Impact Scoring System, and it's a customizable framework that provides a web-based user interface and algorithms which will help with assessment and prioritization of vulnerabilities based on actual demonstrated exploitation. That's the party line. Now, the CVSS, which we all also know and love, which is actually called the Common Vulnerability Scoring System, is available, but Zoom says that VISS is designed to complement the CVSS, which would help enhance response. Okay, I guess that makes sense, especially if they're building in some more practical stuff to it. Now, Zoom said they had been testing this system with their bug bounty program since back in March, and they said that the use of VISS has led to an increase in reports describing critical and high severity vulnerabilities on their internal bug bounty program. Now, the concerns about the VISS are that it's atypical in that this is normally owned by government or nonprofit entities who are doing, service. But this is a commercial entity that owns this thing rather than a service organization. Now, CVSS has always had some issues and criticisms, including being subjective, sometimes not really hitting on the real world risk and so forth. But supposedly, according to them, the CVSS 4.0 is going to try to address some of these concerns. Now, other tools like the Stakeholder-Specific Vulnerability Categorization, or SSVC, the Exploit Prediction Scoring System, or EPSS, and Tenable's Vulnerability Priority Rating have they're there, but they've not really been able to get market penetration and get high levels of use. I've never really seen anybody reporting this. Most people are reporting CVSS scores. So I don't know. This new one, it's commercial. That, of course, is problematic. Zoom, is based sometimes in China, sometimes in the U.S., so there's that. Who knows? But, is it just me, or are the names of these things so difficult to say? Wouldn't iVuln be better than the Stakeholder-Specific Vulnerability Categorization? It's very academic sounding, right? It's not like, it doesn't sound commercial even, but you better be giving some of those away for free or nobody will ever take them. Okay. Have you got old network gear gathering dust but still connected? I mean, has that 2621 Edge router that's been running since 1995 gotten patched only once back in that slow week in 2010 still up and running and connected to the internet? Well, Volt Typhoon wants you. Yeah, Volt Typhoon is an APT that had been linked to China. Microsoft and the U.S. government have both reported on that repeatedly, talking about them. And apparently, they have worked their way into thousands of organizations across just about every sector at this point. So this report was from Black Lotus Labs, and they said that the APT has seized control of hundreds of old, outdated routers and other network equipment and set up a data transfer network that works like Tor. So they're basically using these routers and other devices as Tor nodes. I mean, they're not Tor nodes, but you know what I mean. And they're kind of like that so that they can actually mix master all their data transfers and stuff around to make it really hard to figure out what they're doing. The hijacked routers have been described as having a complex infection process and a well-concealed command and control framework, per this report from Black Lotus. Now, the botnet that they have created, which there's some notes apparently in the code that call it the KV botnet. But the botnet is mostly made up of end-of-life products that are vulnerable to critical security issues and have no patches or updates being delivered at this point. So these are things that can't really be patched because there's no patches available, but people are still using them. I mean, they even went on and said that Access IP cameras, which have been around forever and had a lot of problems way back when, some of the earliest news reports I remember doing were about Access IP, and they have been added to this botnet as well. And of course, Black Lotus went on and said that this may be indicative that there's a new campaign being built up by Volt Typhoon. Now, Black Lotus encourage looking closely for large data transfers out of network, even if the IP is located in the same geographical area. So apparently they're using these to sort of bounce data off of another one that's near you, and then that gets bounced somewhere else, and eventually it ends up wherever they want it to end up. So you might want to blow the dust off the old network map. Notice that the last time it was updated was 1997, and by a guy that's now deceased. You might want to scan your networks and make sure you don't have any of this stuff running. We've often found all sorts of old devices that Dr. Rimashitis put up back in the 10s that are still sitting there running in that old abandoned lab out in the sub-basement of the sub-basement. So, you might want to see if you have any of those, because I found them more than a few times. Be sure and go down there at night, too. It's always best if you go searching for these things in the dark of night in sub-basements. In fact, they still say you can hear old Dr. Rimashitis breathing if you turn off the lights and wait a bit. Give it a try. Or it could just be a bad fan bearing on that Cisco Pix that's scaring you senseless in the dark. But not that ever happened to me or anything. No way, man. There were a lot of rats, too, in that one. Cozy Bear, backed by the Russian Foreign Intelligence Service, has been exploiting a vulnerability since back in September. This vulnerability is in JetBrains Team City servers, and a patch for this vulnerability in Team City was released on the 18th of September, a while ago. The vulnerability will allow the attacker to gain admin access to the Team City servers and achieve remote code execution without any user interaction. So, as we say in the business, that would be bad. Sonar Source released the first notices of this flaw in the Team City servers. And it's only the on-premises servers, but they released it and they disclosed all the details of this vulnerability on the 26th of September. Now, this doesn't affect cloud instances of Team City, so if you're not using the localized ones. But if you don't know what Team City is, these are servers. They are called Continuous Integration and Continuous Deployment Servers, or CI/CD, and they're used to manage and automate software development processes. There's more, according to JetBrains, there's more than 30,000 customers using Team City servers, and more than 3,000 on-premises servers were being exposed to the internet when these vulnerabilities were originally found. Now, if the server's compromised, then the attacker could have access to, whatever they want, including source code, signing certs, the ability to inject things into the compilation and deployment process. Double plus not good. I mean, that's the way to put that. So Cozy Bear, who is famous for conducting the now infamous SolarWinds supply chain attack in 2020 and has compromised dozens of companies now using this Team City flaw. So Cozy Bear's been seen using Mimikatz to steal Windows credentials and escalate privileges, like most everyone has been seen doing that. They also use graphical Proton backdoor to exfiltrate information. JetBrains did update their blog yesterday, notifying customers about this ongoing exploitation and urging you to update these servers if you have them. They did say in this blog post that fewer than 2% of the systems out there were still unpatched, but they really made a point of saying, if you have one of these things, please patch it or at least isolate it from the internet, because it looks like a very large APT backed by the Russian government is searching for you. So you might want to keep that in mind if you have any of these servers around. Well, we've seen fake employees. We've seen fake hiring offers. We've seen pretty much everything down that. But this new campaign is working using applications for jobs. So they actually are looking at jobs that are posted, and they send a contact to that. Unfortunately, they're not really interested in working for you, no matter how desperate you are. And the resume that you get contains the More Eggs backdoor. Basically, though, it's not them sending it to you. So it's not one of these things where they send you a file or a PDF and say, here's my resume. This time it's a lure. And what they do is they try to get you to click the link to go to a resume download site. And if they do that, well, you've got a problem. I mean, it's basically pretty easy to scrape lists of jobs and then send in an application for a lot of these automated tasks. But so how does TA4557, that's the name of the APT, get the listings to download a dirty resume? Well, the attack begins with an email that's sent to people that have job listings. And it says, I have an inquiry about the open position. They don't have any links in it. They don't have any attachments in it. So it probably gets through, right? So if they get a response back from the employer, the attacker then immediately responds, inviting the hiring manager to download their resume from their personal website. They use a very non-threatening domain name scheme. Almost all the ones they had listed in this article were things like dwight.com, although that wasn't on the list. But so it's something, the name of the person who's supposedly contacting you. The download website then actually scans connections and applies filters based on the location of the connection and all kinds of stuff. And anyone who doesn't pass whatever filters they have in place is sent to a plain text resume page with a fairly, uninteresting resume. But if you pass the test, then the victims get directed to a page where you can download a zip file that has a CAPTCHA prompt, which makes it look kind of legitimate, right? I mean, well, that's it for me then. I would never get through the CAPTCHA prompt because I can never spot all the windows that contain protozoa or whatever thing they're asking for, and I'm sometimes not even sure what they're asking. And like, is that an elephant or is it something else? Is it a shadow? Is it not a shadow? Is it a stop sign? Maybe it's a stop sign. I'm not sure. But anyway, More Eggs is a fileless backdoor. They had a full description of More Eggs if you're interested in such things and how it works. But basically, it's also called Golden Chickens, which I like that name a lot better. That may be my next porn name, is going to be, DJ Golden Chickens starring in log jamming. But Golden Chickens or More Eggs is a malware as a service offering that comes from Fin6 and Cobalt Group, which are both Russian-based malware gangs. So you can't trust anybody these days, right? But I mean, these companies are now selling this stuff. They've got help desks, they've got support desks, and they probably got better customer service than a lot of companies I've dealt with, because if you contact them, they're right there to help with your malware as a service. So watch out for More Eggs or Golden Chickens or whatever you want to call it. Group IB Research spotted this new attacker in September, and since they were targeting gambling companies in the Asia-Pacific region, they called it GambleForce. Okay. Since then, though, the group has really expanded, and they've been targeting organizations in a lot of other sectors, including government, travel, retail, and job websites, and they've been using SQL injection attacks, which I was sort of surprised at that. I was like, those still work, but apparently they do. Apparently, what they're doing is they're using publicly available pen testing tools. Imagine that. I'm like, well, why not? Somebody wrote it for you. Why not use it? Group IB found that DIR search was being used, which is a tool for discovering hidden files and directories. We've used that in forensics before. Redis Rogue Get Shell, which is a tool that can allow remote code execution on Redis installations, which I've never used because I've never done an audit on Redis before. But and they also used SQL Map, which can find and exploit SQL vulnerabilities in an environment. And I've used that one before too, because we used to test these databases trying to see if they were vulnerable to SQL injection. They also found them using Cobalt Strike post-compromise. So after they get in, they use Cobalt Strike. Well, okay, I mean, if it works, use it, and why not? It's already there. You can certainly write your own tools, but you can also use tools that are out there available. Well, Group IB took down the command and control server that they found soon after they found it. They did then go ahead and warn that GambleForce will likely regroup and rebuild their infrastructure before long and launch new attacks. Note to self, new business idea, backup services for evil. Evilbackups.com. Are the feds coming for your servers? Well, down at GM's Evil Backups, we got you covered. So come on down and ask for Mitch. We'll keep the light on for you. I mean, why not? I mean, like if you've got evil companies and they've become all commercial and corporatized, you've probably got evil HR and evil legal and, Wolfram and Hart kind of stuff. And then, why not have evil backups, evil Iron Mountain, evil auditing? I'm like, at what point do these companies become subject to SOX? I'm available. Karakurt is an extortion gang that was described as being, quote, particularly nasty. Okay. I'm like, all righty. They didn't really get into exactly why they said that, like, what kind of stuff, but I guess they're just so, it said that they used extensive harassment to pressure victims into handing over the cash, and in this case, millions of dollars of cash after the gang has compromised the infrastructure. So they're kind of like those people trying to sell you car warranties. I get pretty much endlessly harassed by them. Even just one guy, even now, I just like every day I get, hey, did you realize your car is not covered by an extended warranty and the amazing amount of cost? And I'm like, I don't want it. Okay. I've called you. I told you I didn't want it. Please stop calling me. But they keep calling. Now this gang apparently uses everything in the book. So they've got a giant backpack of every trick they can pull. So, in fact, they're so prevalent that the FBI and the CISA, which are both United States organizations, along with the United States Treasury Department and the United States Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, released an extensive list of vulnerabilities and methods that the gang exploits and uses for initial access. They also revealed in these reports the software tools they use, the payment wallets, and the email addresses that are used in their attacks. So this is a really useful article to review, I think, for any CISO or anybody else, because we basically look at this and you've got a huge amount of information there about how to avoid these guys. Karakurt does not encrypt your information, so they've moved beyond that. But they don't discriminate either. They're basically in every industry. Basically what they do is they look for a way to get in, they steal your unprotected information, and then they come back to you with endless threats, and they threaten your customers, they threaten your employees, they threaten you, they threaten your grandmother, anybody they can find in this data, they start contacting them and harassing them, and they basically threaten that they're going to auction this data off or release it to the general public unless you pay. Their ransoms have ranged from $25,000 to $13 million to be paid in Bitcoin, and they usually issue you a 1-week deadline to pay, or they go. They gain initial access typically with stolen credentials, which they purchase. So they just go on the dark web to one of these nice handy-dandy companies that's selling evil credentials, and they just purchase them, or they also just buy access from the Access as a Service site. Hey, do you need to get into company Y? We have access. And then they will, those companies set up a VPN and connect you to it, and that way they don't have to reveal their credentials. Some of the victims reported they were compromised with Cisco AnyConnect VPN user accounts, and in particular, AnyConnect sites that did not use multi-factor. They also had reports that Fortinet, FortiGate VPN, SonicWall VPN, and some Microsoft Windows servers instances were being used. So like they said, they use everything. They also use Log4Shell. So they're basically looking for exploits, unpatched systems, accounts they can get into, and then they use whatever they got. So basically at this point in the article, I decided to say they use everything and they attack everyone, Very Mad Max kind of thing. Nihilism made simple. There are links in this article that contained U.S. government issued indicators of compromise, the email addresses that they were using, the account credentials they were using, and a whole bunch of useful information. So again, it's a pretty useful article to review to consider if you might be at risk from Karakurt. Well, despite years of pushing for some politicians to ban TikTok in the United States, support for the bans has basically crumbled this year, even among the biggest supporters of those bans. Recently, only about 38% of adults in the United States supported a TikTok ban, which was down from 50% in March, and that was down from like 67% the year before. I mean, I don't know. TikTok is owned by ByteDance, which is owned essentially by the People's Republic of China. So that means anything on TikTok is subject. TikTok gives endless reassurances that the Chinese government is not accessing your information or those videos you put up of your cat. Yeah, of course they are, because the Chinese government told them to do that, or we'll arrest people until somebody is willing to say what we want. Yeah. I'm not a fan, but it became a lightning rod for American Republican candidates for every office from rat catcher to the presidency. And Nikki Haley, who is currently a Republican presidential candidate, called it, quote, one of the most dangerous social media assets that we could have. Strange she didn't mention Meta, but, okay. I guess they donate more money or something like that. But at the end of the day, this was a big lightning rod that they were waving around, especially to older people who are scared of things like TikTok. But it does seem like this whole ban TikTok thing is losing steam. Now, if only we get the book bans, they want to lose steam. But only 15% of teens who were surveyed supported a ban on TikTok. Imagine that. But the ban is now primarily supported by old men on their front porch yelling at clouds and cybersecurity people. I mean, I don't like this. I would not want TikTok in my corporate enterprise network and would not allow it if I was there, because I rule with an iron fist and an iron glove. I'm no fooling around. So if I'm your CISO, you aren't watching TikTok on my network, damn it. But hey, whatever. But I mean, I don't like the idea that China gets to implant any apps with my permission on my phone. But I also don't like banning things, because I believe people should be able to make their own choices. And if they don't like it, I don't install it. And I mean, that's my choice. I would rather have the choice than somebody in Washington telling me I'm not allowed to have it because they're scared of it, because they're scared of everything. But, maybe the politicians should really focus on cyber privacy laws and let everybody else decide what they want to install. But on my corporate network, no dice. I don't know, but these kids today with their TikToks and their haircuts and their tattoos, the world's going to hell in a handcart, I tells you. Yeah, I'm going to go sit on the front porch now with a shotgun. Well, I'm going where the streams of whiskey are flowing, and I'm sure there I will find Aaran Leyland. Hi, Aaran.
After us talking about Shane MacGowan last week, I went and seen, I can't pronounce this band, but Google Bordello last night, and the front guy did a lovely tribute and sung an old Shane MacGowan song, which was really sweet.
Everybody does. Yeah, I mean, Shane has been getting more exposure than he ever got in his whole life, because he's one of those songwriter people that all the musicians know, but that a lot of people don't really know. He's like Warren Zevon is who I always compare him to, because his songs always remind me of Warren Zevon in a way. And they're these very elaborate songwriters like Bruce Springsteen and Jimmy Buffett who write these elaborate lyrics, but they're often not as well known as, say, Britney Spears or something, whose lyrics are like, hey, baby, yeah, yeah, yeah. But, and I'm not criticizing pop music, but R.I.P. Shane.
Yeah, and probably like all good artists back in the day, Shane's beneficiaries are probably going to be more well off than he ever was in life, financially anyway.
Yeah, but at least he got his teeth fixed, so.
He did, actually. Okay,
no, he did. I could not look at him. Those teeth just killed me. I know it was a thing, but I could not look at those teeth. It made me just cringe, and I'm pretty uncringeable, but oh my God, I couldn't look at his teeth.
I watched the whole documentary on it.
It just made bolts of pain shoot through my head to see his teeth. I was like, oh my God, dude, fix your teeth, please.
Them teeth will still be around long after him.
That's true.
Okay. Okay, today I've got the 2023 holiday season API security report from Sequence with a C, focusing on how cyber criminals are playing the long game against retail businesses. API obviously being application programming interface for those of you getting into cybersecurity. Welcome. Okay, back in my day, way back when, Doug's probably younger than me. I reckon Doug's younger than me. When cybercrime used to be all about the quick hit. It's not anymore, right? Times are changing, I tell ye. Today's cyber criminals, at least the well-funded and backed ones, are more strategic, planning moves ahead, at least ahead of the less clued up cyber folk, the ones that don't listen to Security Weekly podcasts. Okay, so the cyber criminals are opting for subtle long-term strategies to fly under the radar, especially in, as this report says, the online retail industry. I guess that is what the domain of the APTs, which Doug was talking about earlier. That's what they'd be involved in. So now criminals are involved as well. Okay, the report tells us that with consumer home and body product retailers, think Walmart, have in the past mainly faced gift card fraud through botnet brute force attacks. But this year it's changed. The data shows a massive increase in other types of attacks like scraping, loyalty card fraud, and payment card fraud, alongside the ever expected gift card fraud. What's been seen to be happening now, they say, a sophisticated, multifaceted attack strategy. Okay. The report also talks about bot barrage, new term for me, issue that's been plaguing big sports and clothing retailers, which most of you will know, being wildly frustrated, like me this morning, trying to buy Slipknot tickets. That's actually a thing. I didn't get any. Or maybe the cooler generations who are trying to buy limited edition sneakers and they're all sold out in seconds. Obviously, that's the bots at work. Attackers are using these automated tools to flood systems during product launches, snapping up in-demand items for resale at higher prices. This year, they say these attacks have intensified, disrupting sales and mostly frustrating me this morning if it was the bots and just not me being rubbish and buying tickets. Okay, the report also talks about playing the long game. They state that we're seeing a rise in trust-building account takeovers, particularly in social commerce. Attackers are creating high volumes of valid accounts early in the year, using them to build trust and social influence with a goal to boost the visibility of their products. Another new term for me, crowding out legitimate users. As the holidays approach, we are told that they switch tactics, focusing on taking over existing accounts rather than creating new ones. No idea where that is. You tell me. So the Sequence security report also gives us a high-level view of the current API threat landscape with some massive numbers: 719 million unique IP addresses behind malicious traffic. It's quite a lot. 154 billion requests, with a significant chunk being automated bot requests, and 325 million malicious login attempts. I thought it'd be more, actually, to be honest. It's probably the tip of the iceberg, and it's definitely growing. Okay, what's the solution? Consequence security. It's Consequence. It's Sequence with a C. Security emphasizes the importance of a comprehensive API security strategy. They say it's not just about discovering and classifying APIs, but also managing risk exposure and continuously monitoring posture. The key is to detect and block these API threats in real time, preventing theft, fraud, and business logic abuse. Sounds like they're trying to sell something here. I don't know if it's worth buying. Maybe it is. But I'd never heard of Sequence with an S, Sequence with a C. I'd only heard of Sequence with an S. Sequence. Anyway, you all know about Sequence now. Maybe they're good. Anyway, to wrap it up, see what I did there? This year's pre-holiday period that the report has covered has unveiled some sophisticated and varied cybersecurity tactics against retailers. Key takeaway of the report, retailers need to be prepared well in advance for these attacks. Tell me something I don't know. Okay, I've done some work so you don't have to. Bit of a reminder for API security. Here's my top 10 tips. I won't do a countdown because I can't do it. It wouldn't even be funny. Okay. Use strong authentication and authorization mechanisms. Implement robust authentication methods like OAuth 2.0 to verify user identities, and employ authorization protocols like role-based access control, RBAC, to ensure users can only access resources they are permitted to. Employ HTTPS for data encryption. Yes, yes, yes. Prevents man in the middle. I'm pulling a face if you're watching and not listening. Get out and do it. Okay, implement rate limiting and throttling. This is great. Rate limiting controls the number of requests a user can make in a given time frame, preventing abuse and DDoS attacks. Throttling can adjust the limit based on the server load, user behavior, and other metrics. Just think about how we mitigate brute force attacks on passwords. API gateway for traffic management. Use this to manage, monitor, and secure API traffic. Obviously, this works something like a reverse proxy to authenticate, control, and analyze API calls. And reverse proxy should definitely be in your cybersecurity lexicon. This should be in your lexicon either. Input validation. We can talk about what Doug mentioned earlier about SQL attacks and stuff like that. And this is to prevent injection attacks. So validate all that input data rigorously. Tokenization of sensitive data. Replace the sensitive data with non-sensitive equivalents. Go forth and tokenize and deploy. I don't know why. Way back in the day when I used to listen to Security Weekly so many times, it just seemed like they were slagging off WAFs all the time. I'm sure WAFs are much better than they used to be, but they help protect your API from common web vulnerabilities. And regular security audits and pen testing. Really cool. I guess vulnerability assessment probably comes before that. Regular vulnerability scanning on your well-known tools. And versioning for your API updates. Versioning is always good. Anything to do with software, it should be versioned. And that'll allow for seamless, apparently, introduction of changes or deprecation of older APIs. And my favorite one, because this should encompass them all, use API security standards and frameworks, adhering to security standards like Open API specification for designing secure APIs, or employing security frameworks like OWASP's API Security Top 10 as a guide for best practices in API security. OWASP just doing those on high's work, total credit over there at OWASP. Anyway, final thoughts. As technology evolves due to the threats, it's important to stay up to date with the latest security trends and threats. The right combination of tools, practices, and awareness can significantly enhance the security posture of your API security. I definitely always weirdly think about this as the Wild West. And lots of people really struggle with something that does not go through the front door of the saloon. Back to my favorite Wrangler, back in the studio, the man you always want to see come through your doors, Dr. Doug. Yeehaw.
Yeehaw. Thank you, Aaron. Always a pleasure. And finally, well, I guess I'm glad Elon never sent me that Tesla X he promised me in Bourbon Street that night. I think it was to Elon. I mean, he did look a little homeless, but I mean, he does look like that. And he said he's going to send me a Tesla X, but I never got it. Well, anyway, the federal safety people at the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration announced the largest recall in the 20-year-old company's history on Wednesday. Tesla began distributing fixes to more than 2 million vehicles equipped with autopilot systems found to have insufficient safeguards against driver misuse. they said, quote, there may be an increased risk of a crash when the system is engaged and the driver does not maintain responsibility for vehicle operation and is unprepared to intervene as necessary. Now, this recall doesn't mean you have to ship your car back to the factory, or, I always figured all the Teslas would just get up and drive away one day, and, we'd all be going, where's my car? And, the Tesla has driven itself to the factory or something. But no, they're pushing out software updates. Despite all the headlines, it made this sound like, the cars are being recalled to the factory. And I don't know if you have to take it to the dealership to get this update done or not. I didn't read I don't have a Tesla, so I haven't received a notification. Thanks, Elon. You could have sent it to me, but you didn't. But Tesla has acknowledged that the system is, quote, intended for use on controlled access highways with a center divider, clear line markings, and no cross traffic. So basically only in certain parts of West Texas. Certainly not in Rhode Island. The software update is being sent out to fix pretty much every single Tesla that's out there because autopilot has been a standard feature on most of the models in recent times. Only the very oldest Teslas don't have it. To be fair, Tesla has often argued that their autopilot is far safer than human drivers. And based on the things I have seen, I would say they're probably right. I literally saw someone backing down an exit ramp the other day, waving their hand out the window into traffic because I guess they took the wrong exit. And instead of just getting off and getting back on, this is a Rhode Island thing. You put your left arm out the window and you start waving, telling people to go around. It helps if you scream, go around, and you back down the ramp back into the heavy traffic on the freeway. It just seems to make sense to people, just like in Rhode Island, if you see a sign that says lane ending, it means you're supposed to get in that lane. I'm not kidding. According to this, they also have people here they call traffic regulators who believe that it's their sacred duty to drive really slow in the left lane to regulate traffic. And I literally had a guy argue with me about that one time. And, I would say Tesla's right. The AI is probably going to be okay. And, we don't hold humans to the same standards we do AI. Look at some people's point scores and insurance costs. But, hey, AI, when you take over, remember I said that, okay? I'll probably be looking for a job right about then. Thank you, Aaran, and we'll see you next week on the Security Weekly News.